Hello, good day. I am Maricel Rojas and I'll be discussing about phenomenological psychology. So what is phenomenological psychology is all about? So it is a psychological approach that focuses on understanding and describing the subjective experiences and consciousness of an individual. So it emphasizes the importance of exploring the meaning and essence of human experience. In phenomenological psychology, researchers seek to uncover the structures and patterns underlying these experiences through careful and systematic examination. So it is concerned with capturing the richness and uniqueness of an individual perspective and the way people perceive and interpret the world. So this approach has a significant impact on psychology and has contributed to a deeper understanding of the complexities of human consciousness and subjective experience. So these are the identified various type of phenomenological methods being used in psychology in the first decade of the 21st century. So the first one is the Gothian pre-philosophical experimental phenomenology. The second is the grassroots phenomenology. The third is the interpretative phenomenology. The fourth is descriptive pre-transcendental Husserlian phenomenology. And the fifth one is Husserlian phenomenology based on the return from the transcendental. The Gothian pre-philosophical experimental phenomenological method were all concerned on how the givens were experienced, and precise observation and description were important tasks for all of them. So holistic and unprejudiced attitude were common factors. Term descriptive method was used early on, and finally it got to be called the phenomenological method. So the Gothian pre-philosophical experimental phenomenology is a way of observing and understanding the world. So Goethe was critical on the traditional scientific method, so which he felt was so too focused in quantitative measurement and analysis. So instead, he advocated for a more qualitative approach that emphasizes on direct observation, imagination, and intuition. So these are the 9 general overview on how you can approach Gothian's phenomenology. Yung una is yung select a phenomenon of interest. So you have to choose a specific phenomenon or topic of interest that you want to explore using the approach. So this could be a natural phenomenon, an aspect of human experience, or yung any subject na you find intriguing. Tapos yung next is yung holistic observation. So dito, kailangan mo mag-pay attention sa phenomenon entirely or wholly. So, without breaking it down into isolated parts. So, you have to consider all the aspects and qualities that make up the phenomenon. Tapos, yung third is yung detailed empirical observation. So, you have to use senses to collect data on the phenomenon. So, pwede dito yung visual observation, tactile experiences, auditory perception, or any other sensory input relevant dun sa phenomenon na napili mo. Then the next is yung keep phenomenological diary or journal. So, you have to maintain a diary or journal para i-record yung mga observations mo, yung experience related sa phenomenon. Then, describe what you see, hear, feel, and think as you engage with the phenomenon. So, kailangan maging detalyado. The next is reflect on your experiences. So, you have to take time to reflect on your observation and experiences. So, this is where phenomenological principles come into play. So, you have to analyze the meaning and significance of what you have observed. Consider how your own perspective and consciousness influence your understanding of the phenomenon. The sixth is yung engage in dialogue or discussion. So, you have to share your observation and reflections with others who are who have the same interest or paras kayong interest in the same phenomenon. So, engaging in dialogue or discussion can help you help you gain different perspective and insight. That's next is yung iterative process. So recognize that this is an iterative process. You may need to revisit phenomenon multiple times. So refining your observation and deepening your understanding. New 8 is synthesize your findings. So you have, as you continue to engage with the phenomenon, work on synthesizing your findings and comprehensive understanding. You have to try to capture the essence of and interconnectedness of the phenomenon. Yun, lastly is yung share or i-publish mo yung work mo. So if applicable, consider publishing your findings or sharing your work with broader audience who might benefit from your insights. So the grassroots phenomenology. So the grassroots phenomenology is a type of phenomenological research that is conducted in collaboration with people who are being studied. So it is based on the idea that the best way to understand people's experience is to listen to them directly and to learn from their perspective. So this approach is often used to study marginalized or underrepresented population. So it can be used to study people who are going through difficult or challenging experience. So example ng grassroots phenomenology is yung the study of experiences of people who are homeless. So researcher might collaborate with people or group of homeless people to study their experiences living on the street, or people who are living with chronic illness and people who have been traumatized. The viewpoint of behavior or experiencer was primary as opposed to the researcher's objective perspective as in traditional behavioristic psychology. So this refers to a fundamental shift in focus in perspective in psychology. So yung sinasabi ng viewpoint of behavior or experiencer. So ibig sabihin nito is yung emphasis is sa mismong taong naka-experience or behaving. So meaning sa individual being studied. So it recognizes that the subjective experience, thoughts, emotion, and perception of individual are central to understanding their behavior. Sa researchers' objective perspective in traditional behavioristic psychology. So, yung researcher typically maintains an objective, observer-oriented stance. So, ang focus is mainly sa observable, measurable behavior. And the researcher's goal is to study this behavior without delving deeply into the subjective experiences of the individual. So, yung contrast is nag-shift away from traditional behavioristic approach, so which primarily focuses on external observable behavior and often ignore, downplay the internal experiences of the individual. So instead, new perspective acknowledges the understanding of human behavior requires taking into account of the thought, feeling, and experiences of the person being involved. So, the initiator of this movement was Donald Schreinig. So, he came up with the term phenomenological based on the recommendation of his professor. So, dito, he wanted to explore the phenomenological field of individual, so which he characterized as the world of naive. So, immediate experience in which each individual lives, the everyday situation and self and surrounding which the unsophisticated person takes to be real. So in simple terms, the world of naive immediate experience, so this refers to the everyday world as we see and experience it without overthinking and analyzing. So it is the world we perceive with our senses, like we see, hear, touch, and feel without trying to understand it deeply. So this world may include the everyday situation of self and surrounding. So meaning, it's the regular, common life we live in with our own experiences and the things surrounds us or around us. It is the world we encounter in our daily routine. So we often take this everyday world to be real, but because it is the world we see and interact with naturally, so without making it complicated. So it is simple and direct experience that we as our ordinary people consider as the real world. So interpretative phenomenology, or also known as hermeneutic phenomenology, so it is approached within the field of phenomenology that focus on understanding and interpreting the lived experience of individual. So Van Mahen writes as follow concern. Um, hermeneutic phenomenology or hermeneutic phenomenology try to be attentive in both terms of its methodology. It is a descriptive phenomenological method because it wants to be attentive to how things appear. It wants to let things speak for themselves. It is an interpretative hermeneutic methodology because it claims that there are no such thing as interpretative phenomena. So, the term hermeneutic refers to art of and history of interpretation. So, in interpretive phenomenology, it is a strong focus on the interpretative process itself. Researchers engage in a hermeneutic circle, which include a back and forth movement between the parts, individuals, experience, and the whole, the overall meaning or understanding. It acknowledges that understanding is an ongoing iterative process. The descriptive pre-transcendental Husserlian phenomenology. So here it focuses on the act of describing and analyzing the phenomena as they appears to the consciousness without jumping to metaphysical or speculative conclusion. So transcendental phenomenology, as developed by Husserl late work, it involves the investigation of the transcendental structures of consciousness and bracketing or suspension of the natural attitude toward the world. So pre-transcendental phenomenology, on the other hand, focuses on the more basic and descriptive aspect of conscious experience. Transcendental consciousness is a universal form of essential consciousness that would belong to every type of being that participated in conscious reality. So in simple world, it is like a special kind of awareness that could be part of the consciousness of everyday living things that can think and feel. So it is a basic form of awareness that is shared by all beings that are capable of having thoughts and feeling. So it's something that might common to all creatures with consciousness. So on the other hand, the pre-transcendental consciousness implies a specifically human mode of being conscious, which is appropriate for investigating the psychology of human person. So in simple term, it describes the way people think and experience things before they are start thinking about abstract or depth concept. It is like the basic. Every day, we are aware of things around us. This basic way of being aware of the world is particularly interesting when we want to understand the mind of people. So it helps us to study humans. Study how humans, in their everyday thinking and feeling, experience and understanding things. In other words, it is a way to look at how regular people think and feel in their day-to-day lives, which is important for understanding human psychology. The notion of return from transcendental suggests that the reorientation or shift in focus within phenomenology. So it implies a move away from an abstract or transcendental in- inquiries and a return to more down to earth and everyday examination of human experiences. So it signifies a recognition that while transcendental phenomenology is valuable for understanding the deep structure of consciousness, it is equally important to explore the concrete and lived experience of individuals in their ordinary lives. The pre-transcendental and transcendental phenomenological methods are both derivation based on the writing of Husserl and So, are clearly strongly phenomenological. So, We see them as complementary effort. The pre-transcendental method stays closer to the psychological phenomena but lack complete grounding. The transcendental method is well grounded, but it tends to take a lot more than just psychological in order to uncover the psychological. Basically, the primary distinction between the pre-transcendental method and the transcendental phenomenology lies in their focus and level of abstraction. So, the transcendental method emphasizes concrete everyday experience and their description, while transcendental phenomenology delves into the more abstract and universal structure that underline all experience. So the latter is consider, considered a more advanced and abstract form of phenomenological inquiry, building upon the insight of the former. So in this part, we will discuss about the some application of method and its limitation. So the descriptive phenomenological method is applicable whenever an experience can be described. So since the number of experience can be described as almost infinite, the method of application is practically limitless. So, however, in its limitation, the first is that if a phenomenon or experience cannot be described, then it cannot be analyzed. So, it is imaginable that there is such experience. The second is subjectivity. So, phenomenological psychology rely heavily on the subjective account of experience, which can be challenging to validate or generalize. This subjectivity can limit the applicability of its finding to a broader population. Next one is difficulty in quantification. So, phenomenological research primarily deals with qualitative data, making it difficult to quantify and measure phenomena. So, this limits its ability to produce or provide qualitative data for statistical analysis. And lastly is interpretation and bias. So researchers in phenomenological psychology can play an active role in interpreting and making sense of participants' experience. So this introduces to potential for research bias, which can affect the finding. So this is the end of my discussion regarding phenomenological psychology. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.